Okay. Well, again, welcome everybody. Really appreciate you all joining us, and we're going to dive right into best practices in producer management and insurance, CRM, and marketing automation. SalesNexus is about helping you grow your business. That's our mission as a company. We feel like when you grow your business, the whole world is a better place. The employees that work for you, their lives are better, their families' lives are improved, your customers' lives are improved, their families' lives are improved, and the communities that all of those people live in become better places to live because of the success of your business. And that's why we're passionate about helping you grow your business. So here's just a quick agenda of what we're going to try and cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about producer accountability and how you can manage that and not make it an onerous thing for everybody on your team. We're going to talk about client nurturing and lead nurturing, staying in touch with the people that are on your list, whether they're existing clients or future clients or just people you'd like to do business with someday, and making sure they know who you are and you get the call when they're ready. And then also we'll talk a little bit about information integration and how that can benefit your team in terms of having visibility within your producer's radar screen to what's going on from a sales point of view and other back-end things, so that you can uncover opportunities and act faster. Okay, so as we all know, whoops, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. As we all know, the struggle in selling, especially to businesses, is to make sure that you maintain enough focus on prospecting, filling the funnel with new opportunities. This is a breakdown of where a typical producer's time is spent. And you can see the biggest pieces here are relationship building and prospecting, and then a little bit of customer service and admin and so on. But as I'm sure you've all seen in the past, a little bit of success in prospecting leads to a whole lot of relationship building, and what can happen very quickly is you're spending a lot of time with prospects and clients that you already have, and you neglect filling the funnel with new prospects, and that can come back and bite you later, of course. So we're going to talk about how to manage that problem. What I want to start with, though, is, oh, I'm sorry, guys, something about my mouse keeps jumping ahead of me there, is the buying process. So in the insurance world, it's easy to fool yourself and think that, people know about insurance and they know why they need it, right? It's somewhat of a known quantity. And so you can oversimplify what's going on in your prospects world as they make a decision about doing business with you, and thereby really mismanage the process and miss some opportunities. This is a very simplified version of the type of buying process that most buyers go through. So, and again, recognizing that we're talking specifically about buyers of insurance, business buyers of business insurance. Are they aware that insurance exists and that they need it? Of course. But are they aware of the specific issues or problems or risks that your company addresses in a unique way. Maybe not, right? And then in a way, that's your differentiator is how you help them address problems, challenges that they have that you address in a different way than your competitors would. So the buyer goes through this process of becoming aware of a new problem that they didn't even know they had maybe. Maybe your salesperson, your producer, has made them aware, right? You know, let me review your policy and your coverages, and then I come back and I say, well, did you know that, you know, based on the business that you're in, you may be at risk for this, that, or the other thing, and we have some additional coverages for that, right? That's what I'm referring to. They're aware of a new risk or a new problem. And then they go into an education phase, which I don't necessarily mean they are being educated by your producer, by your team, but it may be more of an internal thing. You know, I'm just going to do some Google searching and thinking about things and start, you know, is this really true? Is this, and how big is this risk? Then they get engaged. Okay, so I've educated myself. I know there is a real risk there, and I'm interested in doing things to mitigate that risk. So I'm going to get engaged with specific companies to start talking about solutions. And then, of course, there's decision, making a decision who I'm going to go with. So that's a typical buying process. The question to ask yourself is, does your sales process marry well with that buying process? And after doing this for 12 plus years, I can tell you that it almost never does. So here's what I mean. So when you become aware of a problem, whoops, you know, so a salesperson just made you aware that you're not, you know, you're not covered for a certain type of employee management, or I'm sorry, employee liability. Well, you don't immediately jump onto Google and start researching alternative policies and things like that. A lot of times, especially when it's a big deal, when it's come as quite a shock and it's a little concerning to you and you're a little worried about it, you're going to go more into this sort of internalizing phase where you're just going to think about things and kind of wonder to yourself, really? Is that for real? You know, think about it in your own personal life. When you know, when you see an ad on TV for some super cool new gadget or something like that, right? You may think about it for a few days before you actually jump on Amazon and see how soon you can get one shipped to you, right? A lot of times as salespeople, we neglect to understand that. And as soon as the customer sort of nods their head and says, oh, I see what you mean, we assume that they're ready for us to start solving their problem, but most often they're not. We need to give them the opportunity to go through that process of internalizing. If we don't, if we're too aggressive in our sales approach, what we can do is scare them away, right? So typically they do this internalizing, they're thinking about the problem, about their own world and how it really manifests itself to them. And then eventually they start researching solutions. This is when they're starting to Google things and talk to maybe trusted advisors to get some recommendations. You know, who should I talk to about this? So what you want to do is, rather than, oh, I just told you about this new risk that you may be exposed to, let me tell you all about my policies and my pricing. What you want to do is arm them with educational pieces to help them go through this internalizing faster and help them really understand the problem and the risk thoroughly so that they're ready to talk to you about policies. So what that requires is being able to put the right message in the right place at the right time. You're answering the questions that they have in their own mind about, along their journey, and you're personalizing the messages in terms of what's in it and who's it going to at any given time and when it's arriving. So this is a way more complex way to look at this. So there's the buying cycle at the top. And then here are a series of messages that you might be sending to those customers at those different stages. So I've just made you aware, well, first of all, an email or a direct mail piece or whatever, just asking the question, do you have this circumstance? If so, you might be at risk for blah, 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 right? Then if I indicate that that is a concern for me, then the next thing you want to do is send me some case studies. Here's how ABC Corp was at risk and ended up being sued for, and settling out of court for $10 million or whatever, and then how they put in place this coverage and how that's reduced their exposure and their costs and so on going forward, right? And then so on. As you move down this buying cycle, there are different types of messages that are educational for the prospect that are appropriate at that time, but not earlier. So what can be done is this entire process can be automated, and we're going to look at that here in a few minutes. And then your sales team, your producers, can be alerted in real time when somebody engages with these messages. And so I don't mean just, Sally clicked on an email, because then you wouldn't know which email, and it wouldn't really tell you what do I need to call her up and talk to her about, right? But what I mean is knowing that Sally clicked on a particular case study. So when you call Sally, you don't say, hey, Sally, this is Craig with XYZ Insurance. You remember me, we provide business and benefits and life insurance and yada, 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 right? Sound like every other salesperson. Instead, I say, hey, Sally, I noticed you were taking a look at that case study about ABC Corp. What did you think about that? Isn't that a little concerning? Do you guys have that problem? Right? You're getting right into something that's already on her mind because the system is giving you that data. So the sales team, your producers, are armed with the right script based on what the customer is telling you about where they are in their buying journey, right? So real quick, I'm going to jump into showing you how we can do this. But first, I just want to be sure and sort of set the table. If you've used a CRM before, what you know is that typically you have a CRM platform that you subscribe to, and then you have bolt-on modules for marketing automation, for instance, or business analytics and other things that you may need, integration with back-end systems, whatever. And you start bolting all these things on, the cost goes up, the complexity goes up. Eventually, you start needing a consultant to come in and help you babysit it all and keep it working. And of course, finally, the risk goes up as well, because if any one piece fails, well, then entire business processes are broken. So what we've done at SalesNexus is we've combined all this into one offering, where in one platform you have your CRM and your marketing automation, and then we also will help you customize the solution to your unique business. And that's a really important point. Even in the insurance business, you are different from other competitors in your market, right? There are the little things that you do differently from your competitors that really ultimately are your most important competitive advantages, right? And so the system has to work based on those specifics. Otherwise, you're not really measuring what matters, and you're not maximizing the value of your marketing message. From a cost point of view, CRM can be very expensive. This is just a typical example of what it typically takes with most solutions out there. And the important point here is that you're investing in the CRM, but then you're investing in the marketing automation and then other technologies, add-ons, bolt-ons like we talked about. But then you have this other piece that most people don't really plan for because it sort of gets undersold, where you're paying a consultant to do a lot of things for you, and it gets very expensive because those guys charge by the hour, and that's how they make their money. So for a typical group of 10 users, you're talking $33,000 to $42,000 on average in the first year, including both the implementation charges and the software subscriptions. So it can be very costly, and you want to make sure you get it right. Later we'll talk about SalesNexus's offering and for insurance companies and how we can make it simpler and more cost effective. But that said, let me jump into the system now. Okay, so this is a dashboard that we've created for insurance companies. So the important thing about SalesNexus is that this is not exactly what you're going to see in your system. You're going to see something different that's tailored to your business. So you'll start with these generic dashboards. As with most systems, we have our starting point, right? The problem with most systems is that when you want to change it, right, that's where you need that consultant to come in and help you. Well, with SalesNexus, that's really easy to do. So let me just walk you through some of these, what they mean or what they're about, and then we'll look at how easy it is to modify them and customize them to your unique business. So what I have here are, we're assuming that this is a business that offers benefits lines and also commercial lines. And so, I sort of have a pipeline graph by month for both of those separate lines of business. Here, obviously, I'm tracking, how many calls are getting made by my different producers, how many accounts do they each have. And this is a lot of times just handy because at a management level, I just want to go in and look at Jeff's accounts, show me all his accounts. This is an easy way to do it. How many leads are we getting, or how many leads have been added? And then down here, we're breaking down the pipeline in terms of the stage in the process that these opportunities are in. So as you'll see, with any of these dashboards, I can click on any one of these links and be working with that list of contacts that makes up that graph in just one click. So if I want to see the people that we're looking at closing into a commercial policy in May, I just click that link and there's the list, and then I can go in and drill into the details. And so we've built this so that it's super simple, super easy for the producers. As most of you, I'm sure, are sensitive to, the one thing you don't want to do is give those guys a whole bunch of data entry to do. They're going to push back hard on that, and that can undermine the entire effort. So what we've done is tried to put everything front and center. You're not having to click through to, different pages and tabs and things like that to get to what you need. Although, if you have, all these different lines, not just commercial and benefits, but also life and wealth management and things like that, we've got that built in as well. And you can move this around. So if you want to put benefits down here and move wealth up, that's fine. You can do that. And all of these fields you can change yourself. So you may say, hey, I don't care what agency they're currently working with, or I don't care who their carrier is. Then we can get rid of that. You can replace it with something else that does matter to you. And again, those are the things that really make all the difference in the world. So you may have a niche. You may focus on companies with 50 to 150 employees, and that's where you really have some offerings that stand out competitively. Well, so we probably want to have a field somewhere here where the producer, once they've identified a prospect, is categorizing the prospect. How many employees do they have? All of these fields, again, are customizable. You can change the drop downs and things like that. And they're all searchable and can be part of your dashboards, right? So let me go back to my dashboard. And let's say that, like my commercial pipeline, this is just how many deals do we have. But let's say that I want to know how many big deals do we have, right? So I just go here to edit dashboard, select that one, and I say commercial estimated revenue greater than 1,000. Well, let's make that 5,000. Save it, and now you can see it's changed things significantly, right? So if that's my niche, if I'm looking for bigger companies that are going to have bigger policies, then we may be misdirecting our prospecting efforts a little bit, right? So it's the point. One of the main points there is that it's really easy to change that dashboard. Point and click, or create one from scratch. Let me go back to it now. Look at the completed calls. So again, if we're looking at this pipeline graph and we're saying, maybe we're not prospecting in the right places, maybe we're not calling on enough big companies, then I could come into my completed calls graph and say, I want to only see how many calls have been made to people with estimated commercial revenue greater than 5,000, right? So I'm syncing those two up, and now I can see that nobody's doing a whole bunch of it. Jeff's the only one doing any of it. So I got a problem. I need to get everybody in here, and we need to have a conversation about that. But point is, this is actionable information, right? That's the difference. A generic out-of-the-box dashboard that gives you really high-level stuff, and lots of times they can be super cool and sexy looking. It doesn't get you all the way there to where you can pick up the phone and talk to a producer and say, hey, we need to talk about this, right? And that's why customizing things to the specifics of your business is so important, because it gets you that last mile so that the information you're looking at is actionable. Now, let's look at adding into that the campaign piece of things. So, your producers are out there doing what they're doing. Hopefully you're keeping an eye on their prospecting, right? How many new leads are they putting into the pipeline? How many calls are they making to, new prospects? That sort of thing. That's how you're going to know that the funnel is getting filled at an appropriate rate, right? But not everybody becomes a prospect. Not everybody stays a prospect all the way through to writing a policy, right? And often, the reason that they don't has very little to do with you or your producer team. It's just, bad timing or something, right? So if you stay with them, if you stay in touch with them, then when things change for them, you can be the one that gets the call. Now, most of the insurance companies that I've worked with, when they think about let's stay in touch with our prospects, or past prospects or cold leads or whatever you call them, they think about the producers being the ones doing the heavy lifting there, which absolutely they should be part of the process. However, they're human, and there's 8 hours in a workday, right? And there's just a limit to the number of clients that they can nurture relationships with effectively, right? So by layering in some marketing automation, you can really manage a much bigger funnel of potential leads, right? I want to show you how that works. So let's see. I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to look for, well, let me do a little more complex search, actually. I'm going to look for people who have told us, that their benefits business could be, worth a certain amount of money to us, right? So bigger benefits customers, right? So here's my list that met that criteria, 113 people. And now I want to make sure we're staying in touch with those folks. So sure, I could go in here as a producer and schedule myself, to call them back once a month, right? So that's going to be on my task list and calendar now. I could even make it recurring and make it happen every 2 months or every month or every quarter or whatever you think is appropriate. But again, there's only so many of those calls I'm going to be able to make on an ongoing basis. What I can do is come up here and say add to campaign and pick my benefits drip campaign. And this is just simple as an example. It could go on as many emails as you want, but you see it's an email every week for 3 weeks. And I go down here and I say 113, current lookup 113. So I'm going to turn this on to start on Monday at 8:15 for all 113 of those people. I hit add to campaign and boom, those emails are going out. It's totally automated. I log off, go on vacation for the next month. All of those emails are going out. So that's cool. Now, when a prospect tells the producer, hey, thanks a bunch, Jeff. We're really interested. We really like you and your company, but, there's just too much going on right now, and we just don't have the bandwidth to change right now. Let's touch base again next year. Okay, fine. So this way, they're going to get some emails from you along the way. Now, again, these emails could be going on for months and months and months, for an entire year, 2 years, whatever you want to do. There's no limit to how many emails you can have, etc. However, what's really powerful is if I go here and I say click notification, what that means is that the producer that owns that account is going to get a notification in SalesNexus when that lead clicks on one of those emails, meaning they read the email and they clicked on the link to read the article or watch the video or download this or that or whatever, which is basically them raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm kind of interested, right? So you could have a totally cold lead that you don't talk to for 6 months, and then all of a sudden they're clicking on one of your emails, downloading something. That's a good signal. That's exactly when you should call them. And like we talked about before, you want to call them and talk about what they received, right? The email that they just clicked on. I'm going to go back now to my presentation. Whoops, sorry guys. I thought I had a slide in there to talk about sort of how these emails work, but I'll just summarize it real quickly. Basically, writing these emails doesn't have to be real difficult. You don't have to go out and hire a marketing firm. Your marketing team isn't going to have to spend weeks and weeks on creating email campaigns. It can be very simple. In fact, your producers already know what these emails need to say, right? You just want to highlight in each email a pain that your prospect is probably suffering from that you can address with your products and services. And then the email says, do you have this problem? Are you at risk for this? And if so, click here to read more about blah, 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 blah. And if they click that and they go to your blog to read an article, or you could even direct them to content on some of the big carrier sites that you represent. You don't even have to create your own content. But you want them to be branded by your company. You want them to be short and sweet, and you want them to be educational for the prospect, like we talked about before, in terms of where they are in their buying process. And if you do that, like I said, it's the prospect raising their hand when they click and saying, I have a problem you can help me with, which basically means you should call me. And that's what will happen in SalesNexus. As a producer, you know, I'm here doing my job, making my follow-up calls and stuff like that. And in real time, I'm going to see additional tasks show up that'll say, click notification, so-and-so just clicked on your email. And it'll tell me what email they clicked on. So I can pick up the phone and take action. Now, obviously, this can be a great way to generate leads, you know, turn a list into a warm lead. It can also be a way to nurture prospects, like I've been talking about, or cold leads that were hot and then got cold. And it can also be a great way to nurture clients and upsell clients, right? Because that's the other Achilles heel that a lot of us suffer from. We have a new client that we just wrote a policy for, and we have 3 or 4 other lines that they could take advantage of, but they just chose not to at that initial transaction. And now if we just stay in touch with them and make them aware of those things, that's going to pay off. In fact, that's where the most low-hanging fruit is normally with in the insurance business. So you create campaigns for your commercial clients, the clients that you've written commercial policies with, that ask questions and offer educational resources around your benefits lines or your life lines or whichever other aspects of your business you want to highlight. Now, I'm going to jump over into a different system real quick because I just want to show you how easy things can be, and I need to use a database that actually has real emails going out and real things going on. So here's a campaign that we've been sending out invitations to a webinar. So if I want to come in here and say, show me, for instance, all the clients that have clicked on those emails, because I want to now have my producers reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you took a look at our articles about benefits, and just open that conversation, right? Well, I just go right in here. I selected clicks. Here's my list of people that clicked on those emails. I can take that list. You see it says 2,054 people. Take that list and now put them on an entirely different campaign. And that campaign could be more emails, or it could be some combination, calls and emails. So the calls are going to show up on your producer's task list, and the emails are going to be automated. So the last piece of the puzzle here is building your list in the first place. That often is a limitation for a lot of businesses. You've been networking and doing the other things that you do in your community to identify businesses and prospects. But your list may still be relatively small. And, in email marketing, it's just like direct marketing or direct mail marketing. You're going to see, on average, a 1 to 2% click rate. So what that means is if you don't have a pretty big list, you're not going to see a lot of volume of action there. So what SalesNexus offers as a part of your SalesNexus subscription is access to leadferret.com. You can go to LeadFerret right now and start your own free account on LeadFerret and search the system and see what you can find that might be of interest. But real quickly, I'll just give you an example. Let's say that I want to work with companies in my community. I typically want to talk to somebody at the C level. I'll just put in a zip code. We're here in Houston, so I'm going to put in downtown Houston. You could do a map search. You can put in a zip code and then a radius around that zip code. I could put in an SIC code to identify an industry. But let's say that my main concern is whether they have 50 to 150 employees, right? So there's my list. I got 350 contacts back. And so if I click into any one of these, you'll see I get their address and all the basic information about the company, of course, but I'm also getting the title and the email address and the social profiles for that person. So you can come in here and cherry pick the list and say, okay, I want to talk to Hicks Thomas and I want to talk to Mills Shirley and Blackstone Minerals and, the ones that just look good to you. And hit transfer selected to SalesNexus and transfer those over to SalesNexus. And you're able to access 500 of these contacts per month per person. So if you have 10 people on your team, that means you're able to access 5,000 LeadFerret contacts every month and add those to your list, including the email addresses. So I could also just say, you know what, I want all 350 of those. Transfer them over to SalesNexus. And then I get back into SalesNexus and I go to that list. Let's say this is the list I just brought over from LeadFerret, and I put them on one of my drip campaigns. And now my salespeople don't know anything about it. All they know is all of a sudden they're getting alerts when people click on emails. And so point being, by doing that, you're able to reach out to a much wider audience, an unlimited amount of people, really. And your sales team, your producers, are just calling on the ones that are already indicating some level of interest by clicking on these emails. So you're really supercharging your sales process, because instead of having your producers spend the bulk of their time just trying to find somebody that's mildly interested to talk to, they're now spending the bulk of their time talking to people that are interested, that have already raised their hand. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we get back to the cost question. So like we talked about, typical solutions for 10 users, 10 producers, you're looking at somewhere around $33,000 to $42,000 first year. With SalesNexus, because we bundle everything together and we do all the implementation services internally, which means it's not really a profit center for us as much as it is a means to an ends. We know that if we help you tailor it to fit your business, you're going to be much more successful with it, and you're going to be a customer much longer. And that's our main business model. So we have some packages that are much more affordable. You can take our insurance database that we've just been looking at off the shelf and modify it yourself, and for a 10-user group, it's $10,000. If you'd like us to help you tailor the solution around your business, then you can see that's our Done For You package at $16,000. And then our Ultimate package is where we're actually going to create automated workflows for you and help you integrate the system with your back-end systems. So we have a fully functional API so that information from your financial systems can be moving into SalesNexus, and then we can automate workflows, which means that instead of going and looking up a list of people to put on a particular campaign, it's just happening automatically. So, the fact that Dale's policy is up for renewal in December automatically triggers a policy renewal campaign to start on June 1 or whatever. And that policy renewal date can be coming from your back-end management systems. Or if my producer changes the sales stage from proposal to submissions, that could change the campaign that's going out automatically. Another little quick aspect of that is just your website. So if you're spending money to generate leads through your website, people are finding you via search, or you're running ads that are driving people to your site, and they're filling out some sort of a request for quote or contact us form on your site, those go automatically into SalesNexus and automatically onto a campaign. That can alert the salesperson to call them. The producer can call them immediately, but they're also beginning to get emails on an ongoing basis, so they don't drop through the cracks. Okay, well, so we're getting close to the top of the hour here. I want to make sure we leave a little bit of time for questions. Just as a quick reminder, if you have any questions, type them in the GoToWebinar control panel. You'll see where it says questions. You can expand that little section and type in your questions, and I'll be happy to respond to those. I see a couple of questions coming in. So looks like a couple of folks already have some sort of CRM or asking about how you can transition from those solutions into SalesNexus. And that's a great question because it's a real, it can be a real gotcha when you're transitioning from one system to the next. Unfortunately, most of vendors in our industry will oversimplify that process, so that you'll tell them, well, yeah, we've been using ACT, for instance, for 20 years in our firm. And, so we have all this history of notes and contacts and so on. And we want to move all that into your solution. And the vendor will say, oh, yeah, sure, all your contacts can be transferred from ACT. And if you're not experienced with all this, you don't really know that what they're really saying is you can move over the names and phone numbers and addresses and emails, but not all the history, all those notes from all the meetings that you've had and all of the other valuable information that you've accumulated. So with SalesNexus, we can migrate all of that information, and it's included in our process. There's no, gotcha charge that comes up after the fact. So all your notes and histories from things like ACT and Goldmine, which some of you may have been using from way back in the old days, all the way up to the more the online cloud solutions. All of them can provide a backup to you, which will include all your information. Sometimes it's a database backup, sometimes it's just a bunch of Excel files, and either way, we can take those and migrate all of that into the right places in SalesNexus. I see another question here. How many emails can you send? Another good question. I think I skipped that earlier. So with SalesNexus, every user can send 25,000 emails per month. So again, if you have 10 users, that means you're sending 250,000 emails a month. That seems like a ton of emails, right? But if you really take advantage of this ongoing nurturing capability that we have, and you start to automate those campaigns like we talked about, it can add up pretty fast. That's an important question to ask any vendor, because a lot of times that can be kind of a gotcha that really drives up the cost. Let's see. I see a question just came in. Do you have an online version versus it's sitting on the client servers? Yeah. In fact, this is a cloud-based application, so it's accessible over the internet. You log on from wherever you happen to be. So there's no software to install and maintain and all that. Let's see. I see another question. Can you sync it with my Outlook calendar? And the answer is yes. So you can sync your calendar with Outlook. You can also sync with the Google Calendar, and it's both ways. So, you know, a lot of times that's a big deal if you use Outlook corporate-wide. You have internal meetings that are getting planned in Outlook, and you need that time blocked off in SalesNexus, and vice versa. Your client meetings that are getting scheduled in SalesNexus are now showing up in Outlook as well, so other people know not to book you into some meeting while you're supposed to be seeing a client. Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, really appreciate everybody's time, and of course, if you have other questions that we didn't get to for whatever reason today, feel free to reach out to us. And if you'd like to learn more about how the solution can be tailored to your specific business, we can arrange a one-on-one web meeting where we'll go through an initial consultation. We'll talk a little bit about your business, your specific niche, and your processes, your team, and look at our insurance database and how that could be tailored to your specific needs. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to us. Oh, and by the way, you'll get an email tomorrow with a link to the recording to this, or the recording of this webinar. So if there's other people on your team you want to share it with, things like that, you'll have that tomorrow. Again, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time, and y'all have a great afternoon.